Hello, comrades, and welcome back to Ushanka Show. Stories about life in the Soviet Union. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи! В эфире программа Ushanka Show. So today I would like to return to the topic of the World War II, Great Patriotic War as we call it back in the Soviet Union, and the Winter War of 1939 between Soviet Union and Finland. Not long ago I recorded the video Finland's Secret Helper in 1939 Winter War against the Soviet Union, where I mentioned that Codebreakers from Sweden and specifically math professor Arne Berlin helped Finns to break the codes and know in advance plans of the Red Army during the Winter War of 1939. I stumbled on this information totally by accident. I was reading a book called A Man Called Intrepid, The Secret War, the authentic account of the most decisive intelligence operations of the World War II and the super spy who controlled them by William Stevenson. And on page 62, this information came up about Swedish intelligence codebreakers breaking the Red Army code and warning Finns about impending attack of the Soviet Union. And I want to mention right away that several viewers of Ushanka Show from Finland added or tried to correct me, saying that Finns themselves managed to break Russian codes, Soviet codes as well, so they also knew about plans of the Red Army. So once again, take a quick listen, a little quote from the book A Man Called Intrepid. It's page 63. The Swedes were also making tactical use of radio intelligence, an unconscious rehearsal of what would shortly happen in Britain. A big easygoing professor of mathematics, Dr. Arne Berlin, had decoded Russian plans to invade Finland. The Russian invasion was launched on the last day of November of 1939, and Moscow fully expected to force terms on Finland before the end of the year. A warning to Helsinki enabled Finnish tiny 175,000-man army to harass and delay a million Red Army troops, who then lost the vital element of surprise. So I started digging, and in the modern age of internet search, it's quite easy, and I discovered there's actually another book called Codebreakers, and it's dedicated exactly for the Swedish crypto program during World War II and Arne Berlin. It's not really a popular book. I couldn't find it in my library, and Amazon prices were like $35-40, which I really didn't feel like spending. But thanks to the Michigan Library Exchange Program, I was able to get my hands on this book. It came from Central Michigan University Library on exchange. I need to return in a couple of days, so I decided I'm gonna make this video really quick and share with you what I learned from the Codebreakers book. By the way, when I mentioned this code breaking to my Russian viewers, a lot of people got quite upset, claiming it's lies that the Soviet codes were the best codes in the world because they were, I guess, socialist codes. But what I learned in this book, The Codebreakers, it doesn't matter how good your code is. It could be the best code in the world. It's all up to people. So picture if you design this ultimate camouflage to make the person invisible in the woods. If that person will still decide to take a smoke and have a cigarette, it doesn't matter how good your camo, you can still be visible. Exactly same way happened with the Russian codes. It's people carelessly working with those codes that help Swedes to crack them. And by the way, if you're a math nerd, I strongly recommend this book, Codebreakers, because a lot of it is just actually show you examples how to crack basic codes, how they were cracked, some Russian codes. So if you love numbers, I'm not that much math nerd, but if you on that stuff, this is an amazing book to study. I think that's why it was in the Central Michigan University. It's like in their math department. It's kind of interesting. This whole story with the cracking Russian codes began back in 1930s. Actually, during a major Swedish naval exercise in 1928. So Soviet Russia was just a young country, basically 11 years old. Still, Russian naval ships were very intrusive, making the Navy realize the need to follow Russian naval radio traffic. So equipment was installed. They began intercepting foreign military radio traffic, And cryptanalysis started after that. So that's kind of what triggered Swedes into cryptanalysis and interception of the signals is the Soviet Navy kind of intrusive behavior back in 1928. And the first breakthrough they had in the spring of 1933 when two different Swedish officers at the Communications Bureau of the Navy staff simultaneously and independently broke a cipher system used by OGPU or GPU, a forerunner of infamous KGB. Well, OGPU, then it was NKVD, then it was KGB. This was probably the first instance since World War I of a foreign military crypto system being broken in Sweden. I found extremely interesting this part on page 43. When the war broke out on September 1st, 1939, so that's when Germany attacked Poland, this Professor Arne Berlin was called up and was immediately entrusted with the Russian section, which was considered to be the most important one. Let's think about it. So Germany attacks Poland, but Swedish military considers Russia is the most important section in all this deciphering project. I found it quite interesting. And there goes the story how he started analyzing Russian diplomatic traffic. He figured out what kind of one-time pad system they use in, and started brainstorming what the running keys. It's a lot of technical details, but fact is it looked impossible to decipher, but he somehow managed to do it. Found an interesting. So it looks like since Sweden didn't have a common border with the Soviet Union after the Soviet Union failed to occupy Finland, so they were mostly interested in the Russian Baltic Navy traffic, and they managed to decipher 10,400 telegrams in 1940 alone, despite the fact that it had this complicated 4-character code book utilized. Swedes managed to broke it, and then super enciphered 5-digit code book was introduced and also was broken by Arne Berlin and his friend Ike Lindquist. So despite the Soviets using a 4-character code book, super enciphered was a digraph substitution system, and other one, the main system, was super enciphered 5-digit code book. Swedes still managed to break it. And the code book was introduced in May 1939, and for the Sweden the code was readable in November of the same year. And that is the interesting part. In May 1940 the code book was changed, and under normal circumstances it will be a major setback, but the Russians made an unforgivable error. The keys used for the super enrichments valid from the beginning of the month were kept, and since they were already known, it shortened their work by several months, and they made again a breakthrough, and they could read the Soviet messages pretty soon. And there's how they explain the errors committed by the Russians. When changing code books, the Russians managed to commit their biggest blunder by not changing the super encipherment keys at the same time. At the time of changeover, one message was sent twice, once with the old system and once with the new code book. So perfect reference. There's our new code and this is our old code message. So of course they managed to decipher it pretty quick. There was a lot of stereotype messages continuously sent, especially from Baltic Navy headquarters. They mostly concern ship movements, the wasteful use of punctuation marks. So I said it's just on the level of users of the code. Code itself was really good. Then including the address of the sender in the message, placement of the numbers of the codes on the pages, and geographical names placed in alphabetical order in the code books. So as you see, code was great, just end users were horrible. And of course, besides breaking the Russian codes, Swedes were trying to break anything else they had their hands on. And I was very surprised, when I was learning history in the Soviet school, there was never even mentioning that Sweden was under any threat from Germany. Like they declared their neutrality and they were totally cool. But apparently Swedish government was very concerned that Germany would occupy them as well, or attempt to occupy, just like they occupied Norway. So through the war, especially in the beginning of the war, they were extremely concerned that Germany will occupy Sweden. So when Germany requested usage of their underwater cables so they can talk to their troops in Norway, so that was pretty much like ultimatum, we need your cables for our communications. Sweden agreed, and then of course they tapped those cables and started cracking German codes, and they were surprisingly extremely effective. They didn't work with Enigma machines, and they worked against a more complicated device called like G-Schreiber or something. So they knew before German attack on the Soviet Union on June 22nd, 1941, they knew the date and all other information, and actually they sent a warning to Stalin, but of course Stalin ignored it. And when I say Stalin of course ignored, I understand the logic of Stalin. Hitler never finished war with Great Britain. He kind of lost the first stage, air battle for Britain. So it was obviously he would never start a second front fighting second enemy before he finished the first war. So absolutely see why he didn't believe all the information coming in that the war will begin in end of June. So what the book says, June 22nd, 1941, the German attack on the Soviet Union, code named Barbarossa by the Germans, was by no means as surprising as the attacks on Denmark or Norway. It had been predicted in many places of the world. Through the G-Schreiber decrypts, the Swedish authorities knew the date of the attack precisely. Not only the generals know, the girls working with the applications also knew. Birgit Asp and Gertrud Hirschfeld will never forget what they read on the paper tapes ticking out the app. So these are the devices that were printing the deciphered messages. The German soldiers were to be paid double salary after marching into the Soviet Union. Birgit remembers the butterflies in her stomach as she read about historic events before they occurred. So Swedish military leadership knew that despite the threatened troop movements, Sweden would not be involved. So of course, for Sweden it was a really good news to learn that Germany planning to attack Soviet Union next. It's another interesting information. So Eric Boheman met the British ambassador to Moscow, Stafford Cripps, in mid-June. Cripps, so the British guy, did not believe that the Germans would attack the Soviet Union, and he was about to inform his own government. Without any way of revealing his sources, Bohman told him the attack was set to begin sometime during the period of June 20 to 25th. Later, Bohman received a letter of thanks, a thank you card from Cripps, because he impressed his government in Britain. When he later met Churchill, Bohman also found that informing Cripps had been to his advantage. So it's amazing how much they were telling us in the Soviet history classes, how total surprise it was, but apparently a lot of people knew when attack gonna occur. And then surprisingly later on the story got a little spice going, because there was a spy among the Swedish cryptanalysts. A guy was Alan Nieblad, was arrested, and he on the side performed illegal abortions. One girl died and he was sentenced to prison. But apparently in other quarters, the disappearance of Nieblad was more acutely felt in the Soviet embassy. For 5 months, Nieblad had been delivering decrypted German telegrams to the embassy to be forwarded to Moscow. So Nieblad's work included bringing cryptanalysis results from Karblo, where there was the office, to the headquarters in locked briefcase. He was a communist, and realizing that the contents of the briefcase would be valuable to the Russians, he contacted the Soviet embassy, 1-800-HELP-SOVIET. Then Alan and his brother Knut, who had same political leanings, rented an apartment about halfway between those two places, and they managed to find the key for the lock. And on the way they will slip through, take pictures of the telegrams, and then he continued delivering the telegrams. So it was happening several times per week. And the Russians were of course overjoyed, and the scheme ran smoothly up to the time when Alan got arrested for those abortions. Now he was suddenly gone, and his brother had no more rolls of film. So Russians started putting pressure, and this Alan's brother approached another guy about doing the same thing. The guy reported, and everyone got arrested. So this is how they got 12 years in prison, and the guy who reported got a medal. So that was, and one more time, it was never ever reported in Soviet Union about these operations, because it was kind of probably embarrassing to admit, like, we couldn't break German codes, but neutral Sweden could. So yeah, quite amazing book, this Codebreakers. I skipped a lot of parts when they were just explaining these math terms, how to break the codes, how to find the commonalities, but generally quite interesting story. And that's what made me wonder if Swedish discovered about when the war between Germany and Soviet Union was about to begin, when they managed to find out when the Soviet Union gonna attack Finland. I wonder if they also knew any of the Stalin's plans, like if they knew if Stalin was planning to attack Germany sometimes maybe around July 6, 1941, because this is the theory I strongly subscribe to, is that Stalin wasn't like hiding and being afraid of Hitler. He was actually preparing to attack Germany, stab it in its back while Hitler was busy with Great Britain. But Hitler somehow learned about his plans, quit, and turned around. He actually sent, forgot the name of the person, there was this weird, was his second in command, flew to Britain, crashed his plane, trying to make a peace agreement with Britain, because Germany realized, oh, we're in deep trouble, we need to race east to beat Red Army before Red Army attacked us. So once again, awesome book, awesome story. I love this Michigan Library Exchange program. It worked really great. I mean, I pay taxes to support my local library, but it was well worth it. And thanks for watching my story, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye. Hey, by the way, cool merch for cool comrades is available at the Ushanka store at teespring.com. Just a friendly reminder that my book American Diaries is available on amazon.com, or shoot me an email if you would like to have a signed copy. Thank you! And if you love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life and soul.